going on, everyone? My name is Jemiah McKinney, or you can just call me Juice because that is my nickname. In today's show, I am joined by my dear good friend, Tony Russell. And guess what, you guys? He is a Dallas Cowboys fan. We're going to talk some Dallas Cowboys football in today's show. Be sure to check out my guy Tony Russell on YouTube. All you have to do is type in TonyRussell to the YouTube search engine bar, and you will find my guy Tony Russell. That's once again Tony Russell on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to his YouTube channel in which he talks about the NFL, the NBA, all that great stuff. So we're going to get into some Cowboys football, Dak Prescott's contract, what the Cowboys did in the offseason, Andy Dalton. We'll talk about the biggest challenger to the Cowboys outside the Eagles. I'm talking between the Giants and the Redskins. Which team should Cowboys fans be most fearful of going forward as far as their future goes, of potentially being a great rebuilding team? We'll talk about Jerry Jones. We will predict the Dallas Cowboys record for next year, and we will even discuss if Dak Prescott is an elite quarterback. Me and my guy Tony Russell also are going to be dropping a LeBron James, Michael Jordan, and The Last Dance podcast pretty soon. I will upload that to YouTube pretty soon, as well as podcasting platforms. So be sure to be on the lookout for that Last Dance and Michael Jordan versus LeBron James show that we're going to put together. It's going to be on podcasting platforms and YouTube. Like I said, be sure to look out for that. And also, there's some other good news I want to bring to you guys. I'm officially done with my first year of college. So I'm going to be dedicating pretty much all my time this summer to bring you guys the best show and the best podcast. I've already started my Jameis Winston film analysis video. I've already started diving into his film. So there's going to be a lot of great things. Be sure to tell all your friends about the Juice Alert. Get them subscribed. Get them watching my content. Tell your grandma about it if you have to. And without further ado, I bring you my podcast with my dear friend who I go back to grade school with, Tony Russell, as we talk about some Dallas Cowboys football. I hope you guys enjoy. Have a blessed day and stay safe. Hello?
Hello.
Hey, what's good, man?
What's good?
Alright, so I already kind of introduced you to the people, so let's talk some Dallas Cowboys football. What do you say?
Alright, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, no doubt. Alright, so let's kind of talk about how the Cowboys season went last year. We'll talk about their schedule, all that good stuff, but I'm just going to get started right now. So, heading into this year, I thought the Cowboys were actually a playoff team. I thought they were going to go 10-6, be a wild card team and get into the playoffs. And look, I felt their offensive line was pretty strong. I like the wide receiver core. Thought Zeke is one of the best running backs in football. He still is to this day. Defense played very well the second half of the previous year, and I felt they translate that into the whole year for this upcoming season. The only pushback I really had on Dallas was I just felt that Philadelphia was a little bit better, and I felt they had a better coach and better quarterback, and that's the only reason why I had Dallas finishing second in the division, okay? Now, early on, your Dallas Cowboys was bullying teams like the Giants, the Redskins, the Dolphins, and, they went to New Orleans, and then I said, all right, they lost, close game, I'll give them a pass, it's at New Orleans, even though Drew Brees didn't play. Then after I watched the full game versus the Packers, I said, I'm kind of out on this team. I didn't see it, and then they lost to the Jets, and I said, yep, that's not a playoff team. I kept saying it for, the entire season after that, and look, I think the Cowboys, they lost to the Vikings, Patriots, Bills, Bears. Mostly the elite defenses and really good playoff teams were the teams they struggled against, okay? And with all those struggles, they still had a chance to beat Philly in Philadelphia, and they didn't score a touchdown. What do the Dallas Cowboys do? What can go wrong will go wrong. And what I kind of saw was a defense that struggled at times to create turnovers. I didn't feel the pass rush was that great last year. I felt the secondary was kind of meh. I didn't like Jason Garrett's play calling. I felt Jason Garrett kind of overstayed his due in Dallas. And Dak Prescott, he had a pretty good year statistically, but I just feel like that there's a difference between putting up really good numbers and making game-winning plays. And see, I think Dak had a solid year, but when he played the elite teams, I felt he could have did more. So, look, what are your thoughts on what I have to say, and why do you think the Cowboys kind of struggled last year in the worst division in football?
Well, it was definitely a disappointing season. Like I predicted us to go 12-4. I really liked our team last year, and we like you said, we started off strong, and just if we struggled to come out like we struggled to start the game off. We would lose games early. Get down by like 10 or even 21, I believe, in some cases, and then once the second half came and we wanted to make a comeback, it was too late by then. And Jason Garrett definitely overstayed his due. You could see it just the way the players were playing. And even as we were losing, even after Jets lost, even after, losses to several teams, the Vikings, the Bears, I felt, we still had a chance because, like you said, Eagles weren't doing anything. And so it still gave me hope. And then, like you said, we lost to the Eagles. I always like to say Dak was kind of injured that game, but definitely the play calling was terrible. Our offense it needs to be more versatile, especially our route running. Our route running became predictable during the season. We just did the simple curl routes, and corners would guard that, and it was like nobody's getting open anymore just because that's the only route we did. And so we didn't do any double moves or anything like that. It was like we were afraid to go deep. And so it made us one-dimensional. And then with the defense, they definitely struggled to get turnovers. That's the one thing I stressed. And, it was, I forgot it was a ridiculous number. I was watching a Bears game. It was a ridiculous number how many weeks it had been since we had got a turnover. And, so definitely something I need to stress this year. And last year was definitely disappointing. Can't say anything about it. But as far as Dak years goes, it was okay. I definitely felt he could have done more. Sometimes in clutch situations he just, threw an interception or didn't convert when he needed to. So definitely something he has to work on. But I think there's more to come this year.
Yeah, I want to touch on the Eagles game a little bit more. Look, obviously the NFC East was the worst division in football last year. The Redskins were a mess. Excuse me. The Giants were a mess. And the Eagles, I thought they were a talented team, but they had a lot of injuries, inconsistencies with Carson Wentz and the offense. The defense was up and down. But again, I agree. I think that Dak Prescott was probably hurt for that Eagles game. I could tell he just wasn't really pushing the football down the field the way he usually does. I'm not the biggest Dak fan, but again, I could really see something was just off. For whatever reason, he was not playing well. But my thing is, if the Cowboys took care of business versus the Jets or the Bears, then, you wouldn't be in that situation to have a must-win game. And like you said, the play calling that game was not very good. I don't understand why Jason Garrett did not try to establish the run, knowing that Dak Prescott had a shoulder issue. I think that Zeke is one of the best running backs in football, and at times, the Cowboys got away from that. So, I want to transition to this. What, in your opinion, because you're a Cowboys fan, okay? So, in your opinion, is the offense going to be better, more centered around Dak or Zeke, in your opinion? Who should the offense really run through going forward in your eyes? Or do you think you need to be balanced or just kind of like adjust week to week? Kind of touch on that. Obviously, you make adjustments week to week, but what would you say is the best offense, the Dak offense or the Zeke offense?
That's a really good question. Because as you know, there's a lot of weapons on this team. We got three really good receivers now because we drafted CD Lamb. And Zeke, like you said, is a great running back in this league. And I've been high on Tony Pollard since we drafted him last year. I think he's a very good weapon to have. And Blake Jarwin is getting up there, learning things. So, I think we should have more of a balanced attack this year. Just, take what's there, read the defenses. Dak needs to get better at that. reading defenses, calling audibles. He was doing it a little bit last year. We could see, but if he could get better at that, and not go with the first play call, just kind of look at the defense, see what's there, because we have a lot of weapons. It should be very hard to stop us if we play our cards right. Just because we have a great offensive line. Even though we lost Travis Frederick, I feel like Joe Looney did a good job last year when he took over. So, the offensive line is still really good. And, just that has to, he has to improve this year if we're going to be good. Because there's no reason that our offense was top 5 last year, but it's no reason that we shouldn't be scoring a lot of points in games this season.
Yeah, I think your offense was pretty good. They showed flashes of brilliance, versus the Rams. I know that was late in the season, but again, versus the Rams, you guys blew that team out. The offense was clicking on all cylinders that game. I do think that Dallas needs to be more efficient in the red zone. I think they moved the football pretty well. They didn't have really any trouble moving the football, just, scoring the touchdowns. I was saying at times,
yeah.
The field goal kicker wasn't the best, I would say. Hopefully that gets cleaned up this year. But I want to transition to, the new head coach. So, obviously, Jason Garrett is out as the head coach of Dallas. I don't think Jason Garrett is a terrible head coach. He's far from that. But again, is he the guy that's going to lead you to Super Bowl wins and big-time playoff wins? I just don't see it. I think he way overstayed his due in Dallas. Like you said, you tend to agree. So Mike McCarthy's in as the head coach. Obviously won a Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers about a decade ago. I think that he is able to command a locker room pretty well. He's a grown-up. I think that excuse me, he's pretty well respected in most locker rooms and among NFL circles. And I think that he's going to be able to have some success in Dallas. And honestly, it was kind of a dull year for head coach hirings this year. I felt that Dallas got one of the best hires. I really was high on Ron Rivera. I think the Redskins got a pretty good hire there. But again, it was kind of a risk to go for maybe a Lincoln Riley or an Urban Meyer. I don't even know if they were going to take the job anyway. But so I think that Dallas got a pretty good hire right there. What are your expectations for Mike McCarthy? What do you think he's going to bring to Dallas? Is he a true upgrade over Jason Garrett? And what are you looking forward to? The only pushback I would have with Mike McCarthy is, can he work with this quarterback that you have right now? I'm not trying to bash Dak Prescott, but again, Mike McCarthy had Aaron Rodgers. I'm a Packers fan, so I got a pretty good glimpse of Mike McCarthy. I think that he's a solid coach, but at times I do think that Aaron Rodgers kind of bailed him out a little bit more. And anytime you got Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, it makes things a lot easier for your team. Aaron Rodgers would sometimes just put the team on his back, and, the Packers could do no wrong. Now, I think Dak's a fine quarterback. He's above average, but Aaron Rodgers at his peak was a top 3 quarterback in football, one of the best in the game. I mean, arguably the best in the game. He won 2 MVPs. So, do you think that Mike McCarthy can make that transition to elevating Dak and things of that nature? What are your thoughts?
So about the Mike McCarthy hire, I think really any hire, like, I don't want to sound like, like we were desperate for a new head coach, but I feel like any hire Dallas Cowboys would have been excited for, just because Jason Garrett kept us at mediocrity for about 10 years, and then this year just set it off, like we were done. So really any hire would got us excited, but Mike McCarthy was a great hire just because look at our team. We're trying to win now, and he's won before. And like you said, we don't want Urban Meyer or Lincoln Riley, a new head coach to the NFL, trying to wet his feet. You know what I'm saying? So he was definitely the best coach out there as far as experience goes, and as far as coaching in NFL goes. And he's a great offensive mind. And working with Aaron Rodgers, I think not only helps him with Dak Prescott, but it gives him a lot of experience of what a great quarterback needs to look like. And Dak Prescott is a hard worker. So he's gonna do what he has to do. He's gonna listen to Mike McCarthy and take his advice. And and he's been in this league for this is gonna be his 4th year. So they're gonna give each other tips. He's been working with one of the great QB coaches out there who's worked with Tom Brady. I forgot his name, but he's worked with Tom Brady and some of those guys. And so I don't feel like Dak has reached his peak. And I think he's far from it. And I think Mike McCarthy is going to help him get there, just because he did coach Aaron Rodgers. And it's not like he got there when Aaron Rodgers was in his prime. He helped Aaron Rodgers get there. So I think Mike McCarthy is the guy that's going to get us some wins, and he's going to get us to that next level where we've been wanting to be, where we need to be.
Yeah, to piggyback on your point, I think that Mike McCarthy will, to a certain degree, work in Dallas. One thing I will say is that McCarthy kind of talked about how Green Bay never went out and spent free agents, and that's one of the reasons why he thinks that his offense never really evolved and why he wasn't able to do certain things that he wanted, was just because Green Bay never really got the free agents that he wanted. Now, personally, I kind of tend to agree. As a Packers fan, I've been frustrated the last couple of years. We haven't really spent a whole lot of money in free agency. I do think that the front office is not as well run in Green Bay as a lot of people give them credit for. So I think that Mike McCarthy has some issues to deal with. I think that Dak is much more of a naturally born leader than Aaron Rodgers. Definitely not a better quarterback, at Aaron Rodgers' peak. But again, I do think that Dak Prescott is the type of quarterback that McCarthy will like coaching. And I do think that can potentially be the right fit. It will come down to if Mike McCarthy can get the best out of Dak Prescott and if he can elevate the team overall. And I'm interested to see if he's going to run the ball, a lot more, because in Green Bay, we had Aaron Jones, the year where Mike McCarthy got fired, and we didn't really use him, and Matt LaFleur comes in, he actually uses Aaron Jones. So I'm interested to see if Mike McCarthy's going to, utilize Zeke. Is it going to be a Zeke-friendly offense? Is it going to be a Dak-friendly offense? We shall see. But I do like the hire. I do think that I'm still waiting to see about it just because I want to see McCarthy without Aaron Rodgers. But again, I thought it was a solid hire. All right, let's get to some free agents. Do you agree with that, though?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Yeah, Mike McCarthy, he does have some questions just because, there's a reason he wasn't in football for a year. But we're gonna see. We're gonna see what he does. I like the hire though, and I think he's gonna do great. I think he's gonna do great.
No doubt. All right, let's talk about some free agent signings and losses. So you guys lost Byron Jones and Robert Quinn. The defense wasn't great last year. It wasn't really scaring anyone, in my opinion. And look, Byron Jones isn't the best cornerback in the league, but again, he's one of the better defensive backs in the league. And Robert Quinn is that opposite guy of DeMarcus Lawrence, so you lose him. Now you did add Gerald McCoy and Dontari Poe, two very solid defensive tackles. I do think that McCoy is kind of out of his prime. I do think that Poe's good, but I mean, those are solid hires, I would say. Not anything like I would say that's, wow, this really scares me. But again, those are solid hires. You obviously brought in Greg Zuerlein. Ha Clinton Dix should be a decent addition to the secondary. I think that Aldon Smith was a very underrated signing. Potentially, he could get after the quarterback, if he really breaks out this year. I think that was an underrated signing. You also brought in a couple of defensive backs. You actually brought in a lot of them for depth, I would say. Or maybe some stars. What are your thoughts on the free agents you've lost and brought in this upcoming season? And I did not mention Andy Dalton because I want to, give him a little bit of a separate topic, him and Dak Prescott. But what are your thoughts on all the free agents brought in besides Andy Dalton?
Well, first, Byron Jones and Robert Quinn, those were hard losses because Robert Quinn, he was our best sack getter last year. He had the most sacks on the team. And so that was a very hard loss for us. And then definitely Byron Jones, he was our best corner last year. He had his ups and downs last year, but the whole defense did. So losing him hurt as well. But, I think we did a good job in filling the holes that we need to fill. Definitely in the draft, we got Trayvon Diggs in the second round. He's a big corner, and I knew we were going to go for a big corner because it just seems like we tend to go that way when it comes to corners. And he's a big corner, 6'2", and he plays well. He's a very good corner, and he struggles with tackling a little bit, well, a lot. But yeah, he's a really good corner. And then as far as Aldon Smith goes, Gerald McCoy, Dontari Poe, those are some big names, some good guys. They're gonna help us stop the run. Dontari Poe and Gerald McCoy are, and Aldon Smith, I feel like he's gonna get to the quarterback. But I feel like the main focus we were focused on was just getting some rotation in that defense, just to get some depth because. If you can have some rotation, if you keep some guys out there that are fresh and can still produce, then you're in good shape. Because not only do we have Dontari Poe and Gerald McCoy, we drafted Neville Gallimore. We still have Antoine Woods. Tyron Cropper was hurt last year, so he's still there. Randy Gregory's coming back on that defensive line. DeMarcus Lawrence is there. Like I said, Aldon Smith is there. we drafted Bradley Anae. I feel like he's going to be very good. Joe Jackson is somebody we drafted last year who I feel has some talent. Jalen Jeffs as well. And so, I think it's just about getting guys in rotation and keeping everybody out there fresh. And it's kind of, I think we're kind of doing something like the 49ers were doing last year. They had first rounders out there almost every play on that defensive line at least. And you saw what happened. So I think it's just about getting that rotation in, keeping guys fresh, and keeping the offense guessing on what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I do think that having depth on your defensive line is very key to keep guys fresh. To keep the offensive line kind of guessing. I don't think your defensive line is as talented as the 49ers, obviously, but again, what teams have a defensive line as talented as that team? That team's pretty stacked. I got a pretty close look at that when my Packers played them in the playoffs. Either way, we're not going to talk about that. But I want to transition to the Dallas Cowboys draft. Personally, I think the Cowboys had a very good draft. I gave them an A+ as far as their draft goes. The only team that I felt had a better draft, actually, than the Cowboys was the Baltimore Ravens, just because simply I thought they got a couple more big-name players, and based on where they got him, I got to give them a slight edge over Dallas. But again, the more and more I think about the CeeDee Lamb pick, I really like it. I do. I thought he was the best wide receiver in this year's draft. And, a lot of people felt that Dallas needed to go defense with that first pick. And I was actually kind of shocked they picked CeeDee Lamb, but the more I thought about it, the more I like it because, it would have been nice to get maybe a Xavier McKinney or a Clavon Chason, but how much is that pick really going to improve the defense? Like, how much is really going to improve that defense? We don't know. So, I think that Jerry Jones looked at his team and said, okay, let's try to be the Kansas City Chiefs because they got multiple weapons and it's pretty hard to stop that team. And Dallas has the potential with CeeDee Lamb to be a top 3 offense in football, in my opinion. So I really like that CeeDee Lamb pick. I do think that Dak Prescott's going to find him to be a great weapon. Trevon Diggs in the second round. I personally thought that Trevon Diggs was a late first round guy. To get him in the second round was very good value. And then you mentioned Neville Gallimore out of Oklahoma. Thought he was more of a late second round guy, but again, you got him in the third round, pretty good value. Reggie Robinson, I like the pick in the fourth round, and then Tyler Biadasz in the fourth round could potentially be the center of the future. So maybe go a little bit more in depth as far as what Dallas got in the draft. Do you think that they had a very good draft? What would you grade it? And overall, what are your thoughts?
Dallas had a great draft to me. I think I was like everyone else when you talk about being surprised that we got CeeDee Lamb. Even when CeeDee Lamb was on the board, I was like, we're probably going to go Clavon Chason. And, that was the guy I wanted when he fell. We were talking during the draft, and I was like, let's go get Clavon Chason. But like you said, the more you look at it, it's like, wow, CeeDee Lamb was a great pick. Just because, we didn't need a receiver, but it definitely helps to have one. And, you talked about the Kansas City Chiefs offense, and that offense is great. You're not beating that, but we can definitely try to get close to it. Early in the year last year, we were trying to go for big plays and stuff like that, and we kind of stopped as the season progressed. I don't know why, but we kind of stopped. And I think with the CeeDee Lamb pick, I think we're gonna go more after that, more after those big plays, like the Kansas City Chiefs explosive offense. We're trying to be more explosive in our offense. So the CeeDee Lamb pick was a very great pick. And then talking about Trevon Diggs, man, I didn't think he would fall to us. And Christian Phone was there too. And I said it during the draft. I was like, we're probably going to go Trevon Diggs. Like I said, we like those long corners and those lengthy corners. And, that was a very great pick just because we lost Byron Jones and we needed somebody to fill that hole. And I feel like he's going to be great. I feel like he's going to start instantly. And to give him credit, I think he's more of a playmaker than Byron Jones. Byron Jones, he's been with us for a long time, about 5 years, I think. And, didn't really get any interceptions. Got a few, maybe 2, I think. And, he transitioned from safety to corner within his time here, but he just wasn't a playmaker. You couldn't get passes on him, but he didn't intercept the ball as well. So Trevon Diggs was definitely a good pick and could be an upgrade from Byron Jones, I think. And that's no disrespect to Byron Jones, but I just like the pick.
You're high on the pick.
Yeah. And then Neville Gallimore, I think I didn't know about him when we drafted him. I had to do my research, and like I say, he's a really good pick. He's gonna learn behind Gerald McCoy and Dontre Poe. Like you said, they're out of their prime, they're aging a little bit, and so I think they're gonna teach him, how to run stop and how to get to a quarterback a little better. And it was a really good pick for us. Like I said, gives us depth on our D line. Somebody you didn't mention, Bradley Anayi, who we got in the 5th round, who was supposed to, go second to third round, probably late second to third round, but he dropped all the way to the 5th, and that was a really good pick for us. Another edge rusher that can potentially be great. Not be great, but produce. Another great pick for us. And then Reggie Robinson, like you said, was a good pick in the 4th round. I think we're going to try to transition to safety. They've been talking about he's been playing safe. He can play that safety position. So he's either going to do that or Chiba Awuzie will. Either way, I think he's a good guy to develop one. I think he had a really good season at Tulsa. I believe that's where he went, and he's gonna produce as well. And then Tyler Biadasz, he's a good center. He had ups and downs last year, but he was the leader of a Wisconsin offensive line that was very good last year. Obviously, they had Jonathan Taylor back there, which really helped. But he did really well. And the only questions with him is his injuries. I know he had a shoulder injury that kept him out of the combine, and he said he's healthy. And if he really is healthy, I feel like we got Travis Cedric for Wisconsin too, so I feel like he can be that next Travis Cedric.
I tend to agree. I give Dallas an A+, and felt they had a really good draft. Now let's transition to Andy Dalton. Everyone's kind of talking about Andy Dalton, the whole signing of Andy Dalton. Personally, I felt he would go somewhere else potentially, but he ends up in Dallas, so let's talk about it. My thoughts on Andy Dalton, I bashed Andy Dalton a lot in the past just because I felt the Cincinnati Bengals had a really good team, in his prime when he was there the first 5 years. They had really good wide receivers, really good running backs, a pretty solid offensive line, and a defense that was very, very good. And I felt the Bengals were a Super Bowl caliber roster, and Andy Dalton in the playoffs was 0-4 and did nothing. I mean, he just did not play that well. It'd be one thing if he had a bad supporting cast. When you have a supporting cast like that, where are the excuses? That's my whole thing. But either way, I do think that Andy Dalton, when he was going right, was a pretty decent starting quarterback. I'm not going to try to bash him too much anymore. He was a decent starter. He was reliable, pretty accurate at times. Not the most talented guy, but again, he was reliable. He was a pretty solid leader. And he's probably one of the best Bengals quarterbacks ever, okay? So I'm going to give Andy Dalton some respect right there. I do think that he's out of his prime, and he's probably going to be a backup quarterback for most of his career just because he's in that weird space where he's not necessarily as old as like a Tom Brady or like a Phillip Rivers, but he's older in his career, past his prime, and he's hit his ceiling. So I don't ever see Andy Dalton, I don't see a team ever saying, okay, Andy Dalton is our guy, because you could draft a quarterback that potentially, surpass Andy Dalton's ceiling as of right now. And obviously, like I say, he's past his prime. So I think that Dallas, I think Dallas's offense is very, very good. So I think that if you put a solid quarterback in that offense, they can put up numbers and actually have some success. So if Dak Prescott were to go down, I do think that Andy Dalton can come in there and win a game or two. Obviously, a couple years ago, when Tony Romo was on the team, the Dallas Cowboys had to suffer because they didn't have a great backup quarterback. So I think Andy Dalton's a pretty good backup quarterback, one of the best backup quarterbacks in football. But see, it's kind of interesting that they bring in Andy Dalton because, see, Dak Prescott has yet to sign a long-term contract. And there was some potential talks of Dak Prescott holding out this upcoming season just because he hasn't gotten the long-term deal that he wanted. He got franchise tag, but didn't get the long-term deal. So now I think that Jerry Jones is sending a signal to Dak Prescott saying, hey, listen, Andy Dalton in the past, when he had a good roster, he won a lot of games, he made the playoffs. Dak, if you hold out, we have a guy that may not be as good as you right now, because I do think that Dak Prescott is definitely a better quarterback than Andy Dalton right now. But hey, Dak, if you want to sit out, guess what? We got a guy that can win games. And honestly, based on the way the Cowboys' early schedule looks, I think Dallas can have some success early in the season with Andy Dalton if he knows the offense. So again, do you think that Andy Dalton potentially could be a quarterback that maybe replaces Dak Prescott if the team doesn't get a deal? Or what are your overall thoughts on them bringing in Andy Dalton and all the points that I made?
When we first got Andy Dalton, I was like, why do we sign him? Andy Dalton is terrible. I think that was kind of my feelings coming in, just because I know some Bengals fans, and they've always been talking about.
Oh boy, I know. Me and Tony are good friends, you know. Mm-hmm.
And they always talk about how Andy Dalton are better than Dak Prescott. I think that was kind of what was coming in when I saw the pick, kind of my feelings on it. But when I look at the pick, it's a really good pick because our backup quarterback situation is terrible. Cooper Rush is not the guy you want as a backup quarterback.
I had no idea who he was until you mentioned his name.
He is not good at all. So bringing in Andy Dalton was good. Good move by us. I think it definitely was a message to Dak, saying that you don't try anything this year. Don't try to hold out because we got a guy, and if he succeeds, we can easily move on. But I think they're still going to get that long-term deal done before the season starts. But let me get back to Andy Dalton. Like you said, he had his years in Cincinnati, and he got them to some playoffs. Even though they lost, he got them there. And there were even some years where they started off well, got hurt, and thought they were going to look very well, but that's not really his fault. AJ Green, great receiver, but man, he has injury problems while he was there, and that really hurt Andy Dalton as well. So and they never really could establish a running game like that. They were never really great. Have been great rushing attack, nothing like the Cowboys at least. So he has a lot more help here, has a lot more talent around him, I think. And so if he ever needs to step up, if Dak goes down or if Dak decides to hold out, I feel like he will do a decent job. And it definitely gives Dak some competition this offseason. Definitely does. And that's something that Dak didn't have. Is there's no other option after Dak. The past few years, there was nothing. Like, if he went down, we were done. So, definitely gives the second option.
Yeah, Dak is a pretty durable quarterback, I would say. He's never been injured, so he's pretty reliable. I personally don't think we will see any time Andy Dalton is a quarterback this year, just because I think that Dak is going to play the season, just because Jerry Jones has made this move. But again, pretty cheap deal, $3 million. I think that it was a solid move by Dallas, and a pretty big message by Jerry Jones saying, hey, Dak, you better be on your P's and Q's, I would say. All right, so let's talk about the schedule this upcoming season. Personally, for me, I'm going to go best and worst case scenario. Then I'm going to give my just early season prediction. As you guys know in this podcast, once July starts, I will do all 32 NFL teams, breakdowns and previews on this podcast, and we'll just break down the records of all these teams. But again, this is an early season prediction, but I haven't really thought this out too much. I think best case scenario for the Cowboys is 11-5. I think that if Mike McCarthy hits this year, I think that if Dak plays better than he played last year, I think that Dak Prescott had a pretty solid year last year. But again, if he takes those steps and beats up on the really good teams and not just the sorry Miami Dolphins, the sorry Redskins, then I think that Dak Prescott can really win even more games than he won this past year. Ezekiel Elliott obviously is pretty good. Dallas is too talented to not have a pretty decent win total, I would say. I like the draft picks a lot. I think that you have potentially 3, maybe 4 guys that can come in and contribute this year. So I think that Dallas is pretty deep. The defense is kind of a question to me, just because I want to see where the pass rush is really coming from. I do think the interior of the defensive line is pretty solid, but the edge rushers, the pass rush really concerns me. And again, can Dallas get the turnovers? Can they get the big plays in the secondary? That's my biggest question. So I don't think they're dominant enough on defense to be a 12 or 13 win team. But again, if Dallas really pops this year, I think 11 wins is pretty realistic. Worst case scenario, pretty much everything that happened this past year, 8-8, okay? Not playing well versus elite teams. Dak Prescott struggles versus the elite competition. Mike McCarthy with a shortened training camp doesn't get the offense going early. I think that's a slight concern that I didn't talk about earlier, is that I'm kind of a little bit more down on teams that have new head coaching staffs just because of the whole pandemic and the shortened training camp. I'm not saying it's a bad thing that you have a new coach, but again, you're installing a new offense. It's a new voice in the room that could be a concern. But again, I think Dallas is too talented of a team to fall below 500. But again, if a lot of things go badly, I could see 8-8. My official prediction for the Cowboys, I'm sorry, man, gotta go 9-7 right here. I'll let you have the floor in a minute, okay? But either way, I just think that it's not necessarily what Dallas lacks. It's more so the NFC is just loaded. I think that two teams from the NFC West are going to be in the mix for a playoff run. I think that two teams from the NFC North are going to be in the mix for a playoff run. And I don't know who the third team is going to be. Yeah. Also the Saints and the Buccaneers. Tom Brady going to the Buccaneers, that potentially could be another spot taken up. I do think that someone from the South, I think probably the Buccaneers and Saints make the playoffs. Probably the Vikings and the Packers make the playoffs once again. And we'll see what happens out west with the Seahawks and the 49ers. And the Cardinals obviously have a pretty good young quarterback that I like in Kyler Murray. So again, I think that early on in the schedule, at the Rams could be a winnable game. At Seattle could be a winnable game, but I have you losing both those games. So I have you going 2-2 the first 4 games. Then New York Giants, Arizona Cardinals, at Redskins, at Eagles. I think you go 3-1 in that stretch. At Philadelphia is a tough place to play. I do think they're a more talented team. Got you losing at Philadelphia. Steelers, I'll give you a win. Off the bye week, I'll give you a win versus the Vikings. Then a short week versus the Redskins, a division rival. After playing on the road, I got you losing that game because I do think the Redskins will be better. That defensive line is nasty with Chase Young. I do think that Dwayne Haskins will play a little bit better this year. And again, it's a division rivalry. Anything can happen. So I have you losing that game. At Ravens, I think they're a more talented team. It's on the road, a loss. At Bengals, easy win. 49ers at home, it could be a win, but I'm going to give you a loss there because I just think they're a more talented team. The Eagles at home, I got you winning. And then New York Giants on the road. After a big emotional win versus the Eagles, got you losing at the New York Giants. I think that Daniel Jones showed some promise last year. I think their offense has some potential to be pretty solid this year. They're obviously not going to make the playoffs, but again, I do think that the Giants are building something, and it's a division rival game on the road. And after a big win versus Philadelphia, I could see a letdown. And New York has a tendency to win these games late in the season for no darn reason. What are your thoughts on the schedule? You can go through the schedule. You can pull it up if you want and give a record prediction. Best case scenario, worst case scenario. What are your thoughts?
I really like the way our schedule is built. I think it really has. We have a little bit of tough games that first 4 games, but then you go through weeks 5 through 9. It's really not that tough, and then we have that bye week. And I like the late bye week. I said this in one of my videos that like a late bye week, it kind of that's where you want it, just because those first couple games you're kind of excited, and so an early bye week it's not really needed, and a bye week is really for to rejuvenate your team, look at things if you're losing, and kind of regather, so I really like the late bye week. Gives us a chance to a chance to
rejuvenate.
Like I said,
especially late in the season, because injuries could pile up. A late bye is very good for a team.
Yeah. And, especially before that stretch of games where you said we play, the Vikings, the Redskins, the Ravens, the 49ers, the Eagles, some tough division games and some tough teams. All right. As far as worst case scenario goes, like you said, I think it's last year. If we go 8-8, mediocre, I don't think, that's terrible to me, just because of the talent we have on this team. There's no way that we should be going 8-8. Best case scenario, I think 12-4. I think we can go 12-4. Obviously, I'm a little biased because I'm a Cowboys fan, but I also look at it realistically. As far as the schedule goes, we start off on Sunday Night Football at the Falcons, and we go to week 2, or at the Rams. My bad. And then we go to week 2 with the Falcons, and those are 2 very winnable games. The Falcons struggled last year for some reason. I think they'll be much better this year, but I think we can get 2 wins there. Then we go at the Seahawks, and then to the Browns. We go at the Seahawks, and we have the Browns at home. And then so I think we'll probably lose to the Seahawks. the Browns, they're a questionable team as well. It depends what's going on there because last year, everybody was expecting them to make playoffs and everything, and that didn't happen, obviously. So, that's the questionable game. I think we'll win that one. Then we have the Giants at home, week 5, and the Cardinals Monday Night Football. I think we'll win to the Giants. I think the Cardinals are a sneaky team. I think we potentially could lose that game because, that Cardinals team just got a whole lot better adding DeAndre Hopkins to that roster. And, like I said, I think they're a sneaky team in their division and in the league just because of the moves they made this offseason. And then, we're at the Redskins, at the Eagles. I think we win both of those games. At the Eagles, it's going to be a very tough game. We got to see what the Redskins are going to do. I know they have some really good talent over there, but we got to see how it's going to gel. And,
new head coach, too.
Yeah, they have a new head coach, too. Yeah, you're right. And then the Eagles, anything that goes wrong for the season for the Eagles will go wrong. They can't stay healthy for anything. So we're going to see what they do. But I expect us to win that game, even if they are healthy. And, they have a really good team over there. It's just about being healthy. And they got Jalen Reagor in the draft, which was a really good pick. I know they were disappointed when we went for C.D. Lamb. That was kind of a get-back, I feel like, as well. For them picking Dallas Goedert, knowing we needed a tight end. They picked them right before us. And then we go to the Steelers right before the bye week. I think we win that game, too. Then we go at the Vikings after the bye week, and then to the Redskins. I think we win both of those games. We got embarrassed on Thanksgiving last year against the Bills, and I think it should be a point that we need to, because everybody's watching us that day, especially that day. If everybody's not watching us, when we play anyways, especially that day, everybody's watching us, and we got to make a point to win that game because we got absolutely embarrassed last year against the Bills, and I was definitely devastated because it was kind of a big game for Cowboys just because Cole Beasley had just went there and he was talking a little bit of trash during the offseason. It kind of had a little emotional tie to it, and then they were mocking us on the sideline, so we got absolutely embarrassed. So I think that's the game we need to win. Then at the Ravens, like you said, they're a very good football team. So I have us losing against them just because Lamar Jackson, nobody had an answer for him last year, and we didn't have the pleasure to play him last year to try to figure out what he does. So this is our first time playing Lamar Jackson. So we're gonna get a big dose of him and what he's gonna do to us. And I think it's gonna be a close game, but I think we'll end up losing that game. Then at the Bengals, like you said, I'm trying to get to that game, but I think that's an easy win for us. Then we have the 49ers at home. I think that's going to be a close game. I think we win that game, though. I think we can come out clutch. It depends how our defense is. If our defense plays really well, we can get that game. Then the Eagles, I feel like it's going to be a must-win, and so we're going to get that game. Then I feel like at the Giants we'll lose, but only because we won't need it. 12-4 I think is our best-case scenario there.
So you have them winning how many games? 12?
12, yep.
Okay, all right. I don't know about 12 wins, all right, but either way, hey, if you feel you guys can win 12 games, that's all right, that's fine. Just know, when y'all disappoint, just know Dr. Juice told you that, hey, this Cowboys team was fugazi. This Cowboys team wasn't going to do what these Cowboys fans thought they was going to do. But either way, I do think that Dallas has the potential to be a pretty good team if things really work. The only like I said, the real concern I just really have is the first-year head coach thing, and again, the NFC is loaded, man. I had you losing to the Redskins on Thanksgiving at home. You could lose at Washington. I could see you losing to I could see you beating the 49ers, but losing at the Vikings. So again, it's just give or take. Either way, I think Dallas is pretty talented. They're too talented to be a bad team. So again, you made some improvements this offseason. I do think you're a better football team in some areas. But I do think key losses of Byron Jones, key losses of Robert Quinn will push it down to potentially 9-7. That's why I'm going to go it for now. This is my early season prediction. I just think the NFC is too crowded, and I think the new head coach will be a little bit of an adjustment for Dak Prescott. And I just think that Dak Prescott overall is a good quarterback, but is he Carson Wentz? I don't know. But either way, Alright, so let's talk about your quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott. Now, honestly, I kind of feel bad for Dak Prescott from this regard, just because if you just look at the whole scheme of things, he actually deserves to get paid, because I look at Jalen Smith. He's a linebacker. He got paid before Dak Prescott. I look at DeMarcus Lawrence. He got paid before Dak Prescott. Zeke got paid a couple years early before Dak Prescott. And those are running backs, linebackers, and defensive ends, okay? A quarterback is the most important position on the football field, so you would expect Dallas to lock that down. They haven't. And I will say, Jerry Jones has waited way too long to pay Dak Prescott. I don't know if he's fully committed to Dak Prescott, but if he is, he's waited way too long. I know Dak has asked for more money than Jerry is willing to give him at times. There's been some reports that they have given Dak a pretty fair deal, but Dak feels he deserves more money. And honestly, I don't have a problem with Dak Prescott wanting to bet on himself and say, hey, I'm worth more money. I want that check. I don't have a problem with that. And again, I think a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL are overpaid. I thought that Matthew Stafford got overpaid when he first got his contract. I think Jimmy G got overpaid when he first got his contract. Kirk Cousins got overpaid. I think Carson Wentz is worth the money just from a talent perspective. But again, I mean, he didn't have the accomplishments to back it up. So in the NFL, as far as quarterbacks go, it's a next man up mentality. It's about projecting what you can do. Now, I don't know if Dak Prescott's hit his ceiling quite yet. I will give him the benefit of the doubt just simply because he's never had a Super Bowl winning head coach. So now he has a Super Bowl winning head coach. I don't think Dak has any more excuses this year to flame out and not make the playoffs. I know that last year the coaching wasn't great, but again, I think that if you're that guy at quarterback, you can put the team on your back and make the playoffs. Dak Prescott lost a little bit of stripes from me last year, and I had to call him Dak Bortles a couple times because, listen, the guy didn't make the playoffs last year in the worst division of football. Now, my whole thing with Dak Prescott is I think that he's a franchise quarterback. And I do believe, I know you have him probably ranked a little bit higher than me, but I think that Dak Prescott is one of the 12 to 15 best quarterbacks in football. And I'll give you a chance to, chime in on that, once I'm done. But either way, I think he's above average. He's around 12 to 15 range. He's closer to 12 than 15 in my opinion. He's smart, he's accurate, and he wins games, okay? And like I said, I think he's a franchise quarterback, but for the right price. I don't think Dak Prescott is worth top 5 quarterback money. I'm talking Russell Wilson money, what Patrick Mahomes is going to get when he gets paid. Aaron Rodgers obviously got paid a bunch of money. Those are guys I think deserve that amount of money. And the reason why I feel Dak Prescott isn't quite worth a max, like $30+ million. I think that he's worth anywhere from about 25 to 28 million. I will pay him 30 million if I need to, but that's a little bit of a stretch. The thing that Dak Prescott falls short of as far as that category for me personally is I don't think he does anything at an elite level. And when he's had a chance to elevate the players around him at times, when Zeke's been hurt, when some offensive linemen have been hurt, when the wide receivers weren't as great, he hasn't quite done that. And he's had some talent in Dallas. He's had pretty good wide receivers from time to time, has had a very good offensive line. He's had Zeke, obviously. And, I feel the quarterbacks that are going to get paid, I think justifiably can get paid, either have to be talented enough for me to say they can elevate and carry a team actually and put them on their back, or they've had a lot of playoff success. And Dak Prescott's got one playoff win. 12 quarterbacks since he's entered the league have won more playoff games than Dak. He didn't make the playoffs his sophomore season, didn't make the playoffs this past year in the worst division of football. And my mentality was that, listen, I know this is a hot take for some Cowboys fans, but I personally would have drafted Jordan Love. Not because Dak Prescott's a bad quarterback. If I was Jerry Jones, I would have done what the Kansas City Chiefs did with Alex Smith, because Alex Smith's a very solid quarterback when he was in his prime. But I feel the Cowboys may have reached a ceiling with Dak, and I think that they could get a little bit better at the position and just take their swing for things. Because honestly, I think that if you put a solid quarterback in Dallas' offense, they'll be pretty solid and actually win you games. Like I said with Andy Dalton, I think that he can win some games with Dallas' offensive personnel because Dallas is a pretty talented team. And we've seen quarterbacks that have gone in the first round actually produce. And even the quarterbacks that have questions, Josh Rosen, Dwayne Haskins, Mr. Trubisky, those are 3 quarterbacks I think sort of have had questions, that have been first round picks the last couple of years. Mr. Trubisky's won a division. Dwayne Haskins, I think that he got better, the last 3 games of the season. I think that he has talent. And Josh Rosen, I wasn't high on Josh Rosen, but I think that if you put him in a better situation, he at least is a starter. So even the quarterbacks that have sort of disappointed up to this point that have been first round picks, you can win a lot of games with them. So I would have drafted Jordan Love or gone after a better quarterback this year because Dak, I'm sorry, I'm not paying him all that money. That's just my personal opinion. I would have restarted my salary cap and quarterback market and groomed Jordan Love or a young quarterback to sit behind Dak and take off because I think personally, Dallas has kind of reached their ceiling with Dak. And I don't know. I just think that it's a little bit of a time to restart. And if Dak Prescott's begging for all this money that is going to make him one of the top 3 paid quarterbacks in football, I don't think he's worth that for all the reasons I said. So my question to you, Mr. Cowboys fan, Tony Russell, how much is Dak Prescott actually worth? Does he deserve to be the highest paid quarterback in football potentially? What are your thoughts on the whole contract situation? You can chime in on anything that I said. And where do you think Dak ranks among quarterbacks in the league right now?
First off, I think Josh Rosen is one of the unluckiest quarterbacks in the league. I don't even know where he plays right now, but it's just, I think he plays for the Dolphins, doesn't he?
He does play for the Dolphins. Before you get into that, I will say it's all about situation. I think that a quarterback can have some success in Dallas and play well because Dallas is a pretty well-run organization. But go ahead.
Yeah, I just think, they just drafted Tua, and he came from the Cardinals, so he's very unlucky. He hasn't had a real shot to be that NFL quarterback yet. So, but as far as Dak goes, I think Dak is worth what he's asking for. Okay, I honestly do. I don't think we've reached his ceiling yet. And as far as overpaying people goes, Zeke I feel got overpaid. The running backs obviously got overpaid. That's why the Rams just released Todd Gurley because he was not living to his contract. And so as far as overpaying goes, we already overpaid Zeke. So first of all, I don't feel like if we pay Dak, it'll be overpaying him. I feel like Dak is the future of the Cowboys. But, like I said, we already overpaid Zeke. That was disrespectful. Then we paid Jalen Smith. And we waited so long. And he was a 4th-round pick. So you've been underpaying him for 4 years now. So it's time to give him his money. You got a discount for 4 years. So overpaying him really, you've been underpaying for 4 years. That's what I got to say about that. And then as far as him reaching his ceiling with Dallas, I feel like, he reached his ceiling with Jason Garrett, not Dallas in particularly. I feel like Mike McCarthy coming in is going to help a lot. I just feel like him and Jason Garrett, they hit their plateau. I feel like Jason Garrett was kind of holding Dak back because that first part of the season, it was like we were rolling. We had a high power offense. We were taking shots down the field. And then the offense kind of changed. And it was like, I guess it was like we started the offense very well. It was Kellen Moore's offense. And then we kind of moved towards an offense we've seen before. It was Jason Garrett's offense again. So it was kind of weird last year. But, I don't think Dak has hit his ceiling at all. I think he has much room to improve. And I think it was just, Jason Garrett being there that was kind of holding him back. And so we're definitely going to see this year what he does. And as far as his contract goes, I'm going to tell you 2 things. I know it's morally right to do, and I know the things that the Cowboys should do. What the Cowboys should do is, since we have all this great talent, I think they should wait it out, see what Dak does this year. And depending on how well he does, that's when you see how much you pay him. Because this is a great team. He has all the pieces around him now. And so, keep the franchise tag there if he's willing to play on the franchise tag. And, keep it there and we go through the season and we see what Dak does. But as far as morally right goes, they need to pay him now because they waited too long. If this is truly your franchise quarterback, why didn't you pay him in year 2, in year 3? And Kansas City Chiefs, they haven't paid Patrick Mahomes yet, and he's won the Super Bowl. So, it's not that disrespectful. I guess it's just something that we had a lot of players to pay, and we just kind of pushed it along the road, saying we can do this later, but it's kind of like he lacks importance when you're paying, other guys ahead of him. So that's kind of disrespectful. But as far as Dak ranks in the league, I've said this before. I think he's top 10. And I think when he develops, he can be top 5. I just see the talent in Dak Prescott, and I've always seen talent in Dak Prescott. I think, I'm a little emotionally connected to Dak. I wanted him in the 2016 draft, and when we got him, I couldn't believe it. And then when he got the chance to start for us, and he brought us to the playoffs, that kind of that set it off for me. I was like, this guy is the guy that I want as my quarterback, and ever since then, I've just been emotionally connected to him. But like I said, I think he's a top 10 guy in this league. And when he hits his ceiling, I think he'll be a top 5, top 3 guy in the league. I think last year he put up some numbers. Some people say they were empty stats, but I think it was more than that. I think it was just he showed up. He started late. Okay, just it took him a while to heat up. It took him a while to heat up in those games. Our whole team would start slow, and then we would pick it up towards the second half. So I don't think they're empty stats per se, but I think they definitely could have that persona just because we lost in those games where he put up those big numbers. And then in the other games where we put up big numbers, they weren't good teams per se. So I think he's going. And Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, he's not them yet. You know what I'm saying? I know he's not that yet. But I definitely see the talent in Dak Prescott, and he showed some of the things he does. It just shows that he has that Aaron Rodgers, that Russell Wilson, that it factor in him sometimes. And when you talk about him being in the league his first 3 years, he was one of the most winningest quarterbacks since 2016, and he still is top 5 in that quarterback category, even after going 8-8 this season. So, like I said, Dak Prescott produces wins, and he's a winner, and that's what he does for his team. And as far as elevating player goes, Amari Cooper was not doing well with the Raiders. I think he elevated him, but I also think Amari Cooper elevated Dak as well. But I think they elevate each other, and I think he makes him a better receiver on the field. So, as far as elevating player goes, I think he has the potential to elevate players. I think he does that at a really good level.
Yeah, I tend to agree with most of those things. The one thing I will say is I'm going to give Dak one more shot. The only real thing that makes me, push back on Dak, the one thing that I will say that will allow me to give him the benefit of the doubt is the coaching situation. Because like I said, I'm not the biggest Dak fan. I think that he's a franchise quarterback, no doubt, but I'm a little bit lower on him than you are. But again, we've seen Jimmy Garoppolo get to a Super Bowl. We've seen Jared Goff get to a Super Bowl. Whether you want to rank Dak over Jimmy G or Jared Goff, I don't know who's better than the other, honestly. I think Dak is probably better than Jimmy G. You can make the argument he's better than Goff. But again, we've seen quarterbacks that have been close to Dak's level, and quarterbacks you can make the argument that Dak is better than, that have gone to Super Bowls in the past, So I feel if you give Dak a Super Bowl winning coach like Mike McCarthy, there's the potential that he can reach that level that you're talking about. And again, like you said, he probably did reach his highest level with Jason Garrett. I felt Jason Garrett stayed way too long. I think Jerry Jones kind of, had him acting as kind of a puppet. I think that you've kind of talked about that with me as well. Jason Garrett just kind of there. He's, Jerry Jones like to have his say in a lot of things. He's not your typical owner, I would say. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think, like I said, I know what the right thing to do for Cowboys is to wait this season out. If he decides to play on the franchise tag, is to wait this season out, see what he does, because this is the team that we built around Dak Prescott, and now he has the weapons and the coach to do what he needs to do to win. And if he doesn't do that, then it's like, okay, we gotta figure something out. And you're obviously not that $35 million, that $40 million guy that you've been saying you are. So I know the right thing for us to do, but what's morally right is to pay him now And as far as what else did you say? I'm sorry, you said something about Jerry Jones, right?
Yeah, I think that Jerry Jones kind of, was holding Jason Garrett in the franchise a little bit too long because he was kind of, acting as a puppet for Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones like to have a lot of say in a lot of things that some owners just don't have any interest in getting involved in. What are your thoughts on Jerry Jones and the role that he played with keeping Garrett around too long? And do you think personally Jerry Jones is going to, relinquish some of that power to Mike McCarthy? Because honestly, I think Mike McCarthy is the type of coach that will allow Jerry Jones to do whatever he wants. I don't think he's going to have any problems with that, but I think Mike McCarthy is one of the guys where you got to let him do his own thing. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think Jerry Jones, he kept Jason Garrett there a long time. Jason Garrett was kind of a puppet, but there's also family ties there as well.
That is true.
Ties there as well. So I feel like he was emotionally connected to Jason Garrett, and he really didn't want to get rid of him. And you could see it this year. Well, as we were losing, and as Jerry Jones starts to see the fact that we had to get rid of Jason Garrett, there was no other choice. He was emotional about it. He was angry. He was sad. He had an emotional roller coaster, even on the radio show, and cussed them out. So he he went through it. With this Jason Garrett firing. So definitely he didn't want to get rid of Jason Garrett. And as far as his decision making goes, how he is as an owner, he definitely is one of the most he needs to control of the team. He wants credit when we're winning. Okay, he wants to be that guy that they say is the reason we're winning. All right, and you can see it. I thought he kind of changed his offseason. He let Mike McCarthy hire his own staff, so that was a start. But then I kind of got mixed signals when he didn't want the scouting department to help him with the draft. And I mean, he did a good job drafting though, so there really was no problem with it. So it's really confusing. Jerry Jones is a confusing guy to me. It's just I think he's gonna let Mike McCarthy handle the head coaching things that he needs to handle. And I think Mike McCarthy, I think they talked about that during interviews. I think that's something that Mike McCarthy stressed. And I think he's gonna get the keys to Mike McCarthy and let him do what he needs to do to help us win games.
I tend to agree. The only thing I will say is Dak Prescott, you got no more excuses. I'm gonna be nice to Dak this year. I pulled his stripes, this past year. I called him Dak Bortles a couple times, cause, I just like having fun on here. But either way, I think Dak, this is a prove year for him. Obviously didn't get the contract he wanted. I do think that now with a new head coach, he has the potential to have a fresh start, and we shall see. Okay, so obviously the Cowboys and the Eagles, in my opinion, are the two teams that are the class of the NFC East. I think that it's pretty obvious. I think there's a gap between Washington and New York between those teams. You can pick or choose who you want to have as the division winner. I have Philadelphia winning the division once again. I have them going. I think an appropriate record for Philadelphia is about 11-5. And I already talked about Dallas. I have them going 9-7 this year, potentially being a playoff team, but probably not. But either way, I want to talk about the two teams at the bottom of the division, the Giants and the Redskins. Obviously they're two teams that last year drafted young quarterbacks. The Giants surprised the world and drafted Daniel Jones. Personally, I wasn't surprised they drafted Daniel Jones, but where they drafted him, I was like, what? Really? But again, there was some reports that Miami kind of wanted, Daniel Jones maybe. Denver was looking at him. So again, if you like a quarterback, you take him at 6. Honestly, Dave Gettleman, all right, I'll let you have that. I'll let you do what you gotta do. And then obviously the Redskins, they get Dwayne Haskins. He falls to them. I felt he was a steal. I felt that Kyler Murray and Dwayne Haskins were neck and neck for the best quarterback in the draft this past year. So, look, obviously, both teams I don't think are making the playoffs this year. Both teams are still rebuilding. I think the Giants' identity is more on offense with Saquon, with Andrew Thomas, who they drafted, to improve the offensive line. Darius Slayton is a pretty solid wide receiver. Evan Ingram's okay. They do have decent defensive players that are young, Dexter Lawrence, DeAndre Baker. I like the Bradbury pickup. I think that Martinez can help them in the linebacker core. And Joe Judge, let's just say we'll wait and see with Joe Judge. He's young. He comes from the Bill Belichick tree. He says all the right things, but I got to wait and see with him. Now, obviously, the Redskins, I think they're more of a defensive-minded team. You know, with Chase Young coming in, Chase Young was by far the best player in the draft, in my opinion. That defensive line is scary. I do think the Redskins will be one of the top 10 defenses next year because of the defensive players they brought in and because of the talent they have. I know they have a lot of defensive line talent, and it did not work out last year, but we saw the 49ers, when they added that dude, that generational talent, Nick Bosa, everything started to click. And I think that Chase Young has the potential to be better than Nick Bosa. And we both, follow Ohio State football pretty well, so we know how legit Chase Young is. Obviously, Dwayne Haskins, had an up and down rookie season. Daniel Jones definitely outperformed him this past year, but I think Haskins has the potential to pass Daniel Jones. I do believe his ceiling is higher. I worry about his lack of mobility. I think that he's athletic enough. He's more of your Big Ben Roethlisberger, where he's going to move and slide in the pocket, but he's not going to take over a game with his legs. But again, Big Ben Roethlisberger won 2 Super Bowls, so I can work with that. Okay, so who do you think is the one team in that division besides the Eagles that could give the Giants problems down the road? Who are you more scared of? Dwayne Haskins, Daniel Jones? If I'm a Cowboys fan personally, I'd be more worried about the Redskins simply because of that defensive line. Anytime you have a unit like that, they can just take over and win you games playing defense by themselves. And again, Dwayne Haskins, the final 3 games, he had 5 touchdowns to 1 interception. He got better and better as the season went on, despite having bad coaching, a coach that did not want him, a terrible offensive line. And again, he started 1 year of college football. We saw Peyton Manning struggle his rookie year. We saw Troy Aikman struggle his rookie year. So I think that Haskins can become a great quarterback in the league. It's just going to take time. I do think that Ron Rivera is a better head coach than Joe Judge and more proven. So are you more scared of the Giants or the Redskins going forward?
Going forward, I think I agree with you. I think the Redskins are a better team. Obviously, they got that generational player that I feel like in Chase Young. And that defensive line, like you said, was already good last year. They had added, I think, Jonathan Allen, they added last year. So, that defense is really good. They added Ronald Darby. They have Kendall Fuller. They lost Quentin Dunbar this year, but they definitely, filled his loss. Y'all know how high I was on Quentin Dunbar. He had a pretty good season.
the Amari Cooper video, but go ahead.
But their defense is really good. And then Dwayne Haskins on the offensive side, Terry McLaurin had a really good season. Antonio Gibson, somebody they drafted in the draft, really good out of Memphis. Since I go to Cincinnati, I got a chance to see him firsthand, and he's really good. So they got some depth in their line, in their running back situation, because Darius Guice, we thought he was going to be the man this year, and then he got hurt again. So we're going to see if he can stay healthy. But and then like I said, Dwayne Haskins, I feel like he has a higher ceiling than Daniel Jones. I don't think last year he didn't have a good season. I'm just going to say it that way. Him taking selfies after a win that he didn't even throw a touchdown in. It was kind of questionable, but he picked it up late in the season. But that Giants offense has some firepower as well. Daniel Jones picked it up last year. Like you said, Darius Slayton, obviously Saquon Barkley is a beast. Evan Ingram is nice. So they're both up and coming teams, but as far as who's going to be better goes, I feel like you got to give it to the Redskins. They got a lot of young talent over there. And, I really didn't want them to draft Chase Young this year. I really want them to be dumb, take Andrew Thomas, get Dwayne Haskins some protection, go that way instead of, getting that generational talent. I'd much rather him go to y'all division than ours. But, we're going to see him this year, and we're definitely going to know his name by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think that Gibson dude is pretty good. The Antonio Gibson dude they drafted, I think he's really good. I think that he's more of the Paris Campbell type running back, sort of. I think that Paris Campbell's more of a wide receiver, but again, more of your hybrid guy. You can spread him out wide. You can catch passes out of the backfield. He can obviously, run in between the tackles a little bit too. So I like that pick. There's some versatility there. The Gandy Golden pick, that was a pretty good pick too. The guy out of Liberty, I think that he can come in and contribute very well. I think Terry McLaurin is really slept on, man. He's really good. I think that he has some special traits. Steven Sims is okay. I do worry about the offensive line, but again, I think that now that Dwayne Haskins has Ron Rivera there, I think that'll help him because the Redskins, they've had a lot of coaching changes, and the Giants have had some coaching changes too. I trust Ron Rivera more than Joe Judge. I'm not saying Joe Judge is going to be a bad coach, but he's really young. He's got a whole new roster that he's dealing with. It's just going to take time. And Dave Gettleman and the Giants are kind of on the hot seat. So if Joe Judge doesn't perform very well as a coach, the next couple of years, he could get actually fired. I was very surprised to read those reports. I think you got to give Joe Judge and that staff a little bit of time, but I trust Ron Rivera. I think that he's worked with a quarterback similar to Dwayne Haskins and Cam Newton. The big time arm guy out of college. Haskins threw 50 touchdowns at Ohio State. Cam Newton, we saw what he did at Auburn. Big time personality. He's a little bit immature coming out, but I think that Dwayne Haskins will at least have some stability as his head coach, the next couple of years. And I like what the Redskins are doing. The Giants could prove me wrong. It's all going to be dependent on Joe Judge and Daniel Jones, and we shall see. You agree?
Yeah. I think the Redskins could be a very dangerous team this year, just depending on the kind of leap that Dwayne Haskins makes. It depends on what he's going to do this year. If he can make a big leap and become that franchise quarterback and that great quarterback that he was at Ohio State, then they're going to be a very dangerous team, a sneaky team in the NFC East that could, take off. I think they're very dangerous. I got my eye on them for sure.
Yeah. For sure. I think that they could probably win 7 games. I think 8 is a stretch just because I don't think they have enough offensive firepower to win enough games, but I think that Haskins isn't going to score a whole lot of points. I think the defense will keep games manageable. Ron Rivera will make that team competitive. That's one thing the Redskins kind of were not the last couple of years with Jay Gruden. They just weren't really competitive. I think that he kind of lost the locker room a little bit. So, yeah, we shall see. I do think that Daniel Jones is a franchise quarterback. I think that he has some potential. But if I'm going to choose a quarterback, I got to roll with Dwayne Haskins. I debated my guy Fitz Vegas on this. He thinks the Giants will make the playoffs next year and that Daniel Jones is this next great quarterback. I got to wait and see. But either way, I do like the direction both those quarterbacks are going in. But slight edge to Haskins and the Redskins, I would say. And Chase Young, he's a monster. Either way, man, I appreciate you for coming through. It was fun talking to you. Be sure to subscribe to my guy's YouTube channel. It's called Tony Russell. Just type in TonyRussell to YouTube. And you'll find my guy. It's Tony Russell on YouTube. He talks about Cowboys. He talks about the NBA. Just some other hot NFL topics, but mainly Cowboys stuff. So if you're a Cowboys fan, make sure you subscribe to him. And it was good talking to you, man. Appreciate you for coming through.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
Yep. All right, no doubt. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juice Alert Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I currently am a freshman there right now. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juice Alert Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.